Hi everyone. Now I don't usually do these in-depth lap guides, but since I came back to do some more testing to try and cure some instability with the car, I thought I'd just have more of an in-depth look at this track since I feel I know every single curb and apex on it pretty well. This is just in default late afternoon weather, 78 Fahrenheit. It's got slightly more than default track usage on it, 40%. I just noticed the VRS videos have been doing it 50%. I just wanted to see if there was any real noticeable difference. I didn't think there was a big difference going from the usual 20% to 40%, but you know, there might be a tenth or so in it. My best lap was a 12.4. Now I ran that 3 times and a couple of 12.5s, and it was very close to my optimal session of 12.3. It may not be the absolute most perfect lap, but I think it's close enough, and I was quite happy with all the lines, and I think that's what matters. I'm just going to try and do this in one take, so if I stumble or make any mistakes with speaking out loud, then I'm not going to bother cutting it, I'll just keep going. So coming up to the start of the lap here, it's very important to get the car in hard to this right apex, and then make sure you cut it into that left apex, but don't get up too hard up on the curbing, as that will make it bounce and you'll lose a lot of momentum. From there, you've got to continue the leftward movement and bringing it out here. Now you kind of want to enter with the front wheels sort of off the track a little bit, past that white line, to give you the best turn in to the next apex. Now to get a good entry onto a good lap, you've got to not clip that inside curbing and run the car out wide and up onto that left-hand curbing. That was pretty well perfect. Can't ask so much more than that around here. Through this section, you're wanting the car to drift from the front right being on that white line and just slide out wide. Now it's very important when going through here, you don't want to turn the car too much. So you kind of want to just grab like a really light feel in the wheel and let the car kind of bump itself over a few bumps and let out wide. If you hold the wheel too tightly, the car can overreact when going over a few of the light bumps, and it just kind of costs you a few hundredths. It's not major amounts of time, but yeah, it's better not to lose it there. Now here on entry is very important. You want to go out completely right here and turn in and at the apex. Now once you've entered from completely right, the apex is unseen until you're getting close to it, but you don't want to get too close to that inside apex. The actual apex you're aiming for is the white line on the inside. If you get it right, you'll get the front left just up on that white line there. And that will give the car the best angle into the corner. There is a bit of a hidden bump just there on the inside, so if you actually overcut that corner too much, then you'll hit the bump and you'll probably go spearing off into the wall, or at least spin. Now on entry into here, you want to see the throttles just a little bit. Just in this default weather, with this setup, I'm not completely comfortable going flat out. Now I could go flat out, but it just unsettles the car a little bit on entry, and I find that you end up just running a little bit wide than the optimal line. Now as you go to turn in, the back end will feel a bit light, but that's okay. And you want the front left, see that kind of, that discolored line down there? You want to get the front left wheel up on that. Is that will give it, that's about the optimal line through that corner, the front left wheel on this discolored bit of tarmac. And that will guide the car through the corner. Now this is a very easy corner to lose a lot of time and crash if you want to. Now on entry, there's no real braking marker, but you are looking at braking in a straight line. I'm not trail braking into here. I know some people do, but I personally don't. So I'm kind of overlapping the braking and the throttle a little bit on entry. Braking in a straight line, then turning the car. And by the time the car starts to turn, I've lifted off the brake. Now it's very important when you're coming in here, you want to get the front right wheel as close to that inner curb, but you don't want to hit it. If you hit it, it can launch the car out. And what's also quite contentious is, do you go down 1 gear or do you go down 2 gears? Now in a car like the Renault that's got a very smooth downshift, I find in this corner I'd be going down 2 gears, but in something like the Mazda that has a very rough downshift that tends to unsettle the front of the car, I found that you lose more momentum going down 2 gears than what you do just turning into the apex. So you're down into 5th under braking and just throwing the car in, getting the front wheel as close to that inside curbing as you can, and not going too deep. Now the trick is also to get in the throttle fairly quickly. So before you even hit the apex, you're back on the throttle to straight line the car and drive it out wide. It's very easy to clip the grass there, so you've got to kind of judge when to get on the throttle hard and don't do it too early. It takes quite a bit of practice. When you string it all together, you should look quite smooth down 1 gear into the apex and quick on the throttle out. And you just let the car run as far wide as you can and try not to give too much steering inputs because you want to carry as much momentum, and turning too hard will just slow that. Now this next corner, I've seen people take quite a lot of crazy lines through here. It's a lot of people enter it from wide, and you don't want to do that for 2 reasons. Number 1, it adds track distance, but number 2, there's quite a large bump in the middle of the track. So you want to be entering from hard left and just keeping your front left wheel in that inside white line. The car will take it flat throttle, no problem. See, and by not drifting out wide, I've completely avoided that bump. Just focusing on hugging that inside line, and that also sets you up good for the next corner. Now this is by far the hardest corner in the track. There's no real clear braking marker. I'm kind of braking in between those 2 posts there. So when you're getting close to them, just watch them on the left, then you're braking on entry. You do need to trail the brakes into the corner, but you've got to get it really accurately, because if you trail them too hard, you're going to unsettle the back of the car and you're going to pay quite dearly for it. So braking in between the 2 signs and trailing the brakes. Now I've long past straight line the corner, I'm turned in, and the brakes are still trailing. Now once you pass that first apex, you'll lift off them. And cut back and get a clean second apex. Now what I've noticed is a lot of people going very deep in here, and that's fine. It's easy if you can get away with it. But I always find if you carry too much momentum and take the car too deep in here, it's just hard to get it to come back. So I kind of want to leave a little bit of room on the left there. I could have gone wider, but that's okay. And then bringing it back into that left-hand corner. Now another thing you want to do is your gear timing. So on entry, you're going down the gears, of course. Now I'm 4th mid-apex, and you've still got 2 further gears to go down. Now once again, with this Star Mazda's gearbox, it's very easy to unsettle it. So you've got to time those gear shifts really accurately, because you want to be in the second when you're hitting the next apex to get a good drive up the hill. It's very important. And just spacing them out and grabbing when it's convenient. Now I'm not carrying too much mid-apex. It sort of almost feels like it's slow when you're doing it, like the car's kind of hanging out in the middle of the corner for too long, but that's okay. As long as you can cut back and clip that inside second apex through Moss, I believe it's called, you're fine. So the car's just hanging out, we're not pushing it too hard, just slowly going down the gears, bringing it back in, and then getting hard in the throttle. Now I am letting the car drift out wide and get on the outside curbing a little bit. Now that will send quite a few bumps through it, but that's okay. It can still put the power down quite easily, and it's just the angle of the corner that you're going to do that. It would be more optimal if you can keep it just slightly more tighter and don't get quite aggressive bumps on the outside in. That was maybe half a meter too wide, but it's a very difficult corner to judge 100% correctly. As long as you're not getting it too wide out in the grass, a few bumps are okay. just gradually moving over to the right here to minimise the track distance up the hill. Shifting at 3 green lights. I kind of like to wait for them to hit 3 green, then shift a fraction after it. So I think that gives you the best acceleration. I remember Justin Brunner told me that quite a few seasons ago. I used to shift it in the red, but there's not a huge amount in it, but there is a tiny little advantage in shifting on the green. Probably 100th or 2 up the hill. Now here is quite a tricky corner. You're moving to the left. Now you're not really worrying about the first apex. So I'm holding full throttle up until this point, and then I'm starting to lift. You can't go flat into here, even with a really good setup. I'm never completely off the throttle, but I am lifting it down to about 20%, and just trying to keep it off that curbing. You want to get hard into this apex, but you don't want to get up on it, which is very easy to do. Then immediately, yeah, you've got to brake slightly in between these corners just to slow it, and you're off the throttle and entering the next one. But you've got to immediately get the car straight back to this next left-hander. And again, you've got to get the front left wheel up on that white line and don't clip the corner. And then continue the leftward motion over to the very edge of the track, which will give you the best run into the next right-hander. It's very important to get from the left, straight hard left, because if you let the car hover in the middle of the track, if you don't hit this left-hander here and the car hovers in the middle of the track, it's basically impossible to get back and get a good apex on the final right-hand corner. So entering from wide there, you've really got to turn the car in. In some weathers it feels like you're almost sliding the back end through there, and you are sometimes, which is very difficult to judge without spinning, but you've got to aggressively turn it into here, because if you miss this inside apex, it's very easy to run wide through here. So getting it into that inside curbing and not getting up at all on it, and just pushing it out to the outside. And that's a lap completed. I'll do that final sector in full motion. So right apex, hug left, cut back to the right apex, hard acceleration. And I'll just do the whole lap in full motion now. Okay, I hope someone found that useful. I am very familiar with this track. I feel like I've done, I don't know, thousands of laps around here. I probably haven't, but it feels like it. So I hope that was able to help someone out.